You are welcome to Maths Demystified. I have drawn a diagram to help us with this lesson and to make it very fast for us. I want to deal with Ogive, that is cumulative frequency curve. Now, I have drawn the cumulative frequency curve. I want to use it to answer some questions that you may likely when you are writing any examination. So, let's get to work. When you have questions on cumulative frequency curve, sometimes they will ask you things like you should locate at most, at least, or less. Now they want to locate as if what we have here represents number of students, and what we have here represents mark, the marks scored by students in a particular. And the question that students that scored at most a particular mark. For the purpose of the lesson, I will use just a single mark for all the examples, or most of the examples I'll be giving you today. So say I have 49.5 as my mark. So if I ask you to find the number of students that scored at most 49.5, what will you do? Very easy. Cumulative frequency table is not like other tables, and that is why the curve is different. You see, in cumulative frequency curve, any point you pick towards the left is always to it is always to the point on the left because we use the cumulative frequency to draw the graph. If I pick a point here now, it's point before it. If I pick a point, it's higher than the point before it. That's why it is so. So because we use the cumulative frequency curve to draw the graph, anywhere you put at most, anywhere you put your hand is at most. Someone asks you to find the number of students that scored at most 49.5. This is at most 49.5. Do not forget, anywhere you put your hand. So all you need to do is to put your ruler and draw. When it touches the curve, keep moving, and that is it. So in this my diagram now, the number of students that scored at most 49.5 is 40. So I'll write number of students that scored at most 49.5. And the symbol for at most is less or equal to. That's the symbol for at most, less or equal to. So x less equal to 49.5. Number of students that scored at most 49.5. I have done over here. Oftentimes we like to use, so I may use a symbol here. Let me call this one A. So I will say it is A, and the A will now be equal to 40 students. 40 students scored at most 49.5. Put your finger is at most. Please know that that is the basis for what we are doing. Then they can also ask you to find the number of students. This is at most, just for you to remember. At least 49.5. This is greater than or equal to. So 40. That's it. This value among the list Number of students that score at lowest value. This is the lowest value of what you are looking for. This is the lowest value. So you want this region. This region has scored at least a particular mark. In this case, number 49.5. So this is the lowest. This region like this. So, and I told us when I started that this region here represents number of students. So it will be the higher value, the highest value here minus this place where you have your at most. So that will be my highest value in this case is 90 minus the. So I have 90. In this case, I have 50 students. Basic ones, I really want you to know how to calculate and to be able to know how to calculate at least. At most is where you put your hand, the exact place you put your hand and you trace. At least is from that point to the highest. Find the difference between them, and that's how to do it. Let's go to another type. Now, sometimes they will ask you, find the number of students that scored more than. So in this case, number of students that score more than a particular number, a particular mark. Number of students that score more than this value. So where the value you are looking for is more than 49.5. Number of students that score more than that. How do you do it? Now, if you look at this score, 0.5 like that, that means that the person that is using 0.5 as part of the mark, that is half as part of the mark. So look at your scale here that you have used to demarcate, the different upper class boundaries that you have. So look at it. So look at this one. So look at the closest mark to this one. So in this case, if the person marking also has half mark like we have in this case, the closest should be something like 50, because if I had 0.5 to this, I'll get 50. So you look at your range, look at where 50 will fit in. They said more than. So that is more than. Closest mark higher than this. So say I will trace it. I will to where. So let's say this is B. Let me call this one B. So this is the number of students. That's, don't forget, I said it. So they said more. So that means from 50 to this place is what I want. I repeat myself. They said more. Available number that is more than this, which becomes all the numbers that are more than this. So I will just move like this. This is the region that I want. So my answer in this case will be 90 minus the B. 90 minus the B. If, for instance, do not forget we're just using a scale, a graph to explain. I'm not using a graph to follow. So right here, if this is something like 48, for instance, 90 minus 48 give us something like 42 students. And that's how it's going to be. It's as simple as that. So you just look for the next available mark that will serve as the smallest of the region you trace. Then you subtract, find it. And that is exactly what you are looking for. Now, what if they ask you for less than, where x is less than 49.5? I'm sure without any problem. So exactly what I did towards the right, I do it towards the left. The closest number that is less than this number. And in this case, if I look at it, that would be something like 49 because I'm subtracting half. If I added half here to get 50, so if I subtract half from it, I'll get 49 exactly. So I'll just trace it, say it got here and I stop, continue here. This is something like, that gives me C. So this is the highest of the lower value to this value. This is 49. This value is less than 49. All these values here are less than this value. So this one is the highest value of all the numbers, all the values I have. So say the value we might see here is something like 32. Just write C, and it is what? 32. So that simply tells me that when I'm doing for number of students, at most, it is where I put my hand. I will choose least. That place your hand is to the highest. Find the difference. More than, just move a step forward to the right, then go to the region and you pick it. Down, just move down to the closest mark to what you have, and wherever you put your hand, that will be the answer that you are going to have. But what if they say exactly? So if it's exactly a particular value, so where n is exactly 49.5, how do I get it? Please pay attention. It will be this at most minus the less than. At most minus the less than. If you look at the two of them put together, my at most was A, the less than was C. And we said our at most was 40, our less than is 32. So in this case, it will be 8 students. And that is how to solve for it. So please note the different ways that we have solved these things. At most, you also have more than, you have less than, you have at least, you have exactly. That exactly is your at most minus the less than, and that takes care of it. Now, they can play with all these values. They can begin to play with all these values, asking you things like, find the fractions, find whatever. Now, say for example, you are asked to find the percentage of students that scored at most 49.5%, that scored 0.5. In this case, we said people that scored at most 49.5 was 40. That will be 40 over 90, then you multiply by 100%. Whatever you get becomes your answer percentage. But if they just ask you to fraction of the scored 49.5 of students that scored 49.5, that would be 40 over 90, and that's all, which gives you 4 over 9. Of course, you cut the lowest down. So when they ask you for percentage, you take the fraction, multiply by 100. When they ask you like that, they can also ask you to find the probability that a student picked at random scored 49.5. Probability that a student picked at random scored 49.5 is the same thing as the fraction of students, 49.5. So your answer here will also be 4 over 9. So your probability in this case is the same thing as your fraction. Then when they ask you for percentage, just multiply by 100. They can even ask you that if they decide to draw this as sector, you decide to draw it as sector, they are now asking you to find the sectorial angle of the student that scored 49.5. Find the sectorial angle of student that scored. So because they have mentioned is taken from what you have, that fraction, 360 degree, it will be the angle of what they are asking for. And it's as simple as that. Basically, those are the questions that they always ask this topic. So I really want you to take your time and master how to solve. And there's one other one I want to add before I stop. Sometimes they can ask you this. The pass mark. Let me clean all of this. Easy for you to understand. They can say if the pass mark of an examination is 49.5, the pass mark of an examination is 0.5%. And they are asking you how many students passed. The pass mark of an examination is 49.5. This is the pass mark. That means that is the lowest mark passed. So how many students passed the examination? Exactly what that region is what you need. That will tell you the number of students that passed the examination. So in this case, the number of students that will pass the examination, if the pass mark is that, will be 90 minus 40. We did something like that before, and that is 50 students. 50 students as the pass mark. If the pass mark is so, how many students pass? That is it. Just like that, that's the number of students that pass, and it's as simple as that. So with this, I think you should. What we have done today will be able to help you to be able to figure out how to solve that pertains to this Ogive. You just sit down and reason it out, and that's all. Thank you for listening.